Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just go to my PowerPoint and I'll start sharing that. Thank you, everybody. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Okay. Um, I'm going to be talking about the challenges and adaptations and opportunities for teaching writing. Now we're facing the problem or the opportunity of AI. Before I begin, I must do a disclaimer that I am not by any means an expert in AI, and this will be a collaboration. I'm hoping for discussion at the end. I've got ideas that I've got from my survey data, and I'm also trying to think of ways to overcome some of the challenges that we've now faced with AI. But before we begin, can I just say, that there is no need for me to be here anymore because of AI. So I'm just going to sit back and
What if your students could write like the best essays ever, but without actually learning anything?
Wow.
It'd be a dream for them, right?
Right.
But it's a total nightmare for teachers thanks to AI.
Yeah.
So today we're diving into this problem with help from Andrew Boon's research paper,
Yeah.
How AI is Reshaping the Way We Teach and Assess Writing.
And in this paper, Boone doesn't just talk about the problem.
Yeah.
He actually surveyed teachers to find out how they're adapting.
Interesting. So before we get into that, can you give us a little background on
Oh.
Boone's approach to teaching writing?
we could just listen to the podcast. If you're not familiar with the new AI Google Notebook LM, this AI application allows you to drop in any paper and then it will create a podcast between two AI presenters who'll do a deep dive into the subject. That podcast is actually 40 minutes. So I could just play that, but I'm sure you want the real Andy Boon rather than the AI podcast. So I'm just showing some of the possibilities that we now have with AI, but how it could also make us all redundant, where maybe we don't need presenters anymore. Um, okay, so let's talk about writing and let's talk about an approach that I use in my class before AI. And often I get my students to write different rhetorical modes of essays, for example, the cause and effect style, and they'll typically write a 5 paragraph essay on a topic um, using 500 words. So, what are the traditional steps that I get for my students to write a cause and effect essay? Well, first of all, I'll introduce to students the idea of what is a cause and what is an effect, and we'll brainstorm different causes and different effects. We'll think of different topics. So, for example, tourism in Japan, the increase of tourism in Japan. What is a positive effect? What is a negative effect? Students will mind map this. We'll look at model essays. We'll look at an essay that introduces causes. We'll look at an essay that introduces effects. Students will read the essay. There'll be guided questions to help them understand the structure of the essay. For example, how many paragraphs are in the essay? Um, how does the writer introduce the topic? What is the thesis statement of the essay? What is the first effect, second effect, third effect? What is the language that the writer uses to introduce the effect? How does the writer signal a conclusion? Does the writer rephrase the thesis statement in the conclusion or paraphrase the causes? And what is the final wow sentence at the end? Is it a prediction? Is it a call to action? How does it conclude? So students will look at model essays to understand their structure. Then, in the traditional step approach of teaching essay writing, they'll get out a notebook and they'll start to think of possible topics that they could use for their essay. They could maybe write an essay on causes, or they write an essay on effects, or even cause and effect. They get approval from myself, the teacher. They come up with their topic idea, and then they will start the draft writing in the classroom. As they are writing their draft, they bring it to me, and I have an error code system where I will point out the mistakes in their writing. So, for example, SP means there's a spelling mistake. I'll underline the word and write SP. G means grammar, there's some kind of grammar mistake. MW means there is a missing word. WW means the wrong word. P means there's a punctuation mistake. PF means there's a paragraph formatting mistake. CO means they've used a contraction, which we want to avoid in academic writing. So as they are writing their draft, I error code, and then students write a second draft, looking at the error codes and trying to think about the mistakes that they have made, and then they produce a final draft. However, the problem we now face as teachers is that ChatGPT can do this for us. So if I just come out of my PowerPoint for a moment, and I'm just going to go to ChatGPT. Um, okay, so if I can prompt ChatGPT, I can say to ChatGPT, please write me a 500-word essay on the effects, on the positive, let's do positive effects of tourism in Japan. There should be 5 paragraphs, including an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, each introducing one positive effect, and a conclusion, which ends with a prediction. This is the scary thing of AI now for our students. It's taken less than 2 seconds for ChatGPT with the right prompt to write the essay for me. Tourism has become an important part of Japan's economy and culture, bringing many positive changes across the country. With its mix of ancient traditions and modern cities, Japan attracts millions of visitors. This essay, it's even got a really nice thesis statement. This essay will explore 3 of the most positive effects. One major benefit of tourism is economic growth. And then it gives examples. Tourism also encourages cultural exchange. Another positive effect of tourism is regional revitalization. In conclusion, tourism in Japan has many positive effects. You've got the summary. In the coming years, we can expect tourism to become even more important for connecting Japan with the global community. This is the problem we face as language educators, that with just a simple prompt, ChatGPT can write the essay for the students. Now, I was given the opportunity to write a research paper for Modern English Teacher as they were featuring writing. So what I decided to do, I conducted a survey, an online survey using Google Forms, and I got 31 responses for my survey. Most of the respondents were from Japan. There were a few from Australia and one from Italy. Most of the respondents were teaching at the university level, although I got a few responses from junior high school teachers and high school teachers. My third question in the survey was, have you changed the way that you teach and assess writing because of the easy availability of AI writing tools. And you can see here that 87% of respondents said yes. There are still 12% of respondents who said that they haven't changed because of AI. So I was very interested to know, how have you changed and what are you doing with the threat of AI? So, question number 4, if you have adapted your writing instruction methods, what have you done differently? And if you haven't, why haven't you changed the way that you teach writing? One thing that I do when I do survey data, I analyze the responses. What I do, I write them down using Evernote. I'm a big fan of Evernote. The prices are somewhat high now for Evernote, but I do like the application. And I do manual coding. So I'm looking at the responses and I'm looking at the differences that teachers have made, and I'm adding the number of the respondent. So for example, respondent 1, that is back to basics. Respondent 2 talked about recording the writing process. And I keep um, a lot of notes and start to build categories as I do the coding system. And you can see here some of my notes from my analytical data as I do my coding. Ironically, even though I am talking about the dangers of AI, AI is also a great assistant. So once I've done manual coding, I can run my manual coding through ChatGPT, and just to check if ChatGPT agrees with my categories or maybe sees something different in the data. So ChatGPT is a wonderful tool. I wouldn't rely on it for doing qualitative data analysis because it sometimes hallucinates and makes things up. Um, I've just written a paper with Jim, who's here today, and as we were writing the paper, sometimes I would ask. I uploaded all of the survey data to ChatGPT, and I asked it to find quotes to support the arguments that we wanted to make, and sometimes it would just completely make up a quotation. Respondent 37 said this, and because I knew the data, I was thinking, no. So I went back and checked, and actually, it just made it up. And when I challenged ChatGPT, where did you get this quotation from? Oh, yeah, I just made it up. Um, so don't trust ChatGPT when you're doing analysis, but it will check your coding, and it will, maybe confirm some of the ideas that you have been thinking, and it can be a useful tool in that way. One of the strategies that that emerged from the data that teachers are now doing is a return of back to basics. Because students have internet access in the classroom, they have smartphones, they can easily access tools like DeepL, Google Translate, ChatGPT, and get a lot of support with their writing. Going back to basics is a way that you can verify that students have actually done the work. Um, this can be asking students to switch off their phones, put them in their bag, um, and use pen and paper only. The advantage of going back to basics, it seems like a step back when we have wonderful technology, but if students do go on to do any formal English examination like IELTS, when they go into the IELTS classroom for the writing exam, they will have to leave their bags in a separate room, and they'll only be allowed in the IELTS exam room with a pen and the exam paper. So this is really helping students to write by using their brain. So one strategy that we have as teachers, which seems like a backward move, but maybe it isn't, is to say, okay, well, you're going to put the smartphone away and you're going to just try and write this essay with pen and paper. One of the quotations from the data was more in class writing so that I can verify that students actually did the work. It's not easy if you're doing a piece of writing over a period of several lessons, because what can then happen is that students could then get AI help outside of the classroom. So it's not a perfect system. However, in my EAP class, one of the assessments that I do, we've been talking about cause and effect, and we've analyzed many model cause and effect essays. We've looked at the structure in the class. We've looked at ways to organize a cause and effect essay, whether it be block organization, where you do introduction, cause one, cause two, cause three, conclusion, or you do effect one, effect two, effect three, conclusion, or maybe you use chain organization, where you have different cause and effect chains in body one, different cause and effect chains in body two, different cause and effect chains in body three, and then also looking at the language of how in English you can introduce a cause or you can introduce the effect at the sentence level. Then students come into the classroom. We did this actually last week. Students come into the classroom, they're warned there will be a test. They're warned that they won't be able to use their smartphone in the test. They'll be given a piece of paper. On the paper is 5 possible cause and effect questions. They're to choose one question only, and they're to write a plan, and then they have the rest of the lesson with just a pen or pencil and their brain to write the essay. So I've just done this with my students, and it really is illuminating because you get when you get the paper and you mark it, you can trust that the student you're marking the student's current proficiency level, because they had no help whatsoever. It's come from you build up to the paper test. You don't just throw it at them. Um, but that is one strategy that we can now do, um, given the fact that you've just seen with the tourism essay how quickly ChatGPT can write an essay. Another strategy that came from the data is, okay, so we're going to use the technology, but we're going to use a way of tracking students' writing. So in lesson one or lesson two of your writing class, what you can do is set a paper paragraph writing activity, maybe like an introduction, so you get to know the students, and then it's just a practice, but that helps you to get a sample of the students' writing. So you can collect that in and you can kind of get the level of the students from lesson one or lesson two. So you establish a baseline sample of their writing proficiency. If students are writing like at the A1 level and suddenly they're producing material much higher than their level, then you can begin to suspect that they're getting some kind of help from somewhere, and that help could be AI. Having students use Google Docs, for example, you can track how their writing evolves over time. You can see their input. You can see them crafting the sentences, going back, deleting, changing, and adding stuff. If a student completes a big chunk of an essay in one go, it's going to look very suspicious that maybe they've been using AI support. Let me just come out of my um, PowerPoint here and I'll show you what that looks like. I just need to jump around a little bit. Sorry about this. Okay. This is one I prepared earlier. This is an essay on global warming, and I have completely cheated and used ChatGPT. Now, if I go to File on Google Docs and I go to version history and I say see the version history, you can see in the corner that it tells me that I have done this whole essay in one go. I've just copied and pasted it and dropped it in. So now the teacher should be very suspicious that I actually wrote this. It's looking very, very like I've just cheated and used AI. So finding a way of tracking students' writing can be one way of dissuading AI usage. Um, and then another idea that emerged from the survey data from teachers is to try and complete more of the draft writing in class time. So you're in the classroom with the students, you're looking over the shoulder like the image here, and you're checking what your students are doing. This doesn't always work because we are one teacher. Maybe you have 24, 25, 30 students in the classroom, all doing a writing assignment. You can be looking over the shoulder and helping one student, and the other student in the front of the classroom could be sneakily looking at Google Translate, DeepL, ChatGPT. So it's not a foolproof system, but you are showing to the students that you are tracking their writing. You could say at the beginning, if you see like large chunks of writing suddenly appearing in Google Docs, you're going to be super suspicious about their writing. Another idea that emerged from the data and something that I thought would be um, kind of useful activity that ChatGPT couldn't mimic was using more personalization writing tasks. So, in one of my writing classes, the first assignment that they have to produce over a series of 5 or 6 weeks is about them. Again, I use a model essay written by somebody as a self introduction, and they can use the same topic sentences in the body paragraphs, which are who am I, what am I, and why am I here? And it's a way that they can introduce themselves. Who am I? I am the son of my parents. I am brother to my sister. I am from England. They can write a little bit of self-introduction. What am I? I'm an English teacher. They can talk about being a university student. They can talk about their part-time job. Why am I here is kind of like your life goal or your purpose. And they can start to think about what is their purpose in life. And that kind of task, you would think, would discourage AI usage or would not be possible for ChatGPT to mimic. And here, one of the quotations from the survey data is there's less incentive to cheat if you're writing about yourself. Another example of a personalization writing task could be a story. You know, talk about the happiest day of your life, or talk about a day you had an accident, what led up to the accident, what happened after. However, ChatGPT can still write these essays. Again, if I come out of my PowerPoint, if I go back to ChatGPT, just let me try and find where I am. If you're using ChatGPT a lot, it will know you. So again, please write a 500-word essay about me, include who I am, what I am, sorry, and why I am here. See if it can do this. Because I use ChatGPT a lot, ChatGPT knows me. It's very scary, yeah? My name is Andy Boon. I'm a teacher, a writer, and researcher, and perhaps more importantly, a lifelong learner. Originally from the UK and now living and working in Japan, I've spent most of my adult life trying to understand the power of language. What I am is complex because, like most people, I wear many hats. I'm a full-time university professor. It knows so much about me. Very, very, very scary. So even when we are trying to do the personalization tasks, if you have a student that knows how to prompt ChatGPT, it's still possible for them to create an essay or for ChatGPT to create the essay for them. Okay, let's go back to my PowerPoint. So, personalization writing tasks sound like a really good idea. It's something that I've just done with my first year students. They've just finished their first assignment using the who am I, what am I, why am I here? Um, and I'm sure some of the students used some kind of AI in their writing, even though the writing was done in class. I was looking over their shoulder. Um, yeah. However, one thing is, if you're introducing a model and you're saying to the students, well, I want an introduction like the one we've done in the model. Your topic sentence must be, what am I? Body two must be, who am I? And body three must be, why am I here? And it must include certain elements. You'll find that students will not prompt AI correctly and they'll still make lots of mistakes. So even though they may be using AI incorrectly to generate the essay, it's not helping them. So this leaves me to strategy number 4, which again emerged from my survey data. If we can't escape the fact that AI is now in our lives and it's going to get better, um, they're already. I watched a YouTube video yesterday about ChatGPT 5 is around the corner and it's going to be a game changer. Already, I'm finding ChatGPT 4 is an incredible tool for assisting a lot of the work that I do. When students graduate university, they're going to be getting jobs with companies. And isn't using AI an important tool or will be an important tool by the time they graduate? If AI can reduce the time of certain tasks in a company and time is money, then having students learn to use AI correctly would be beneficial. So, some suggestions that came from the survey data. One is that we've got to create guidelines for AI usage, whatever those guidelines may look like. This could be at the institutional level, or it could be just at the classroom level where you as a teacher are going in and saying, well, look, I know that AI is out there. Here are the guidelines. Maybe you have a self-declaration sheet, for example, where students will do a declaration of how much they used AI in their writing. I'm going to get to this a little bit later about some of the strategies that I think we should be doing, but a guideline for students at the start of the course could be very beneficial. And then teaching students how to use ChatGPT to support their writing, not to do the writing for them, but to support the writing. I mean, I do a lot of writing in my daily life, and I use ChatGPT as a valuable assistant. I don't say to ChatGPT, I have a research paper to write, please write it for me. Oh, okay, I'm going to send that off. I use it to help me with my writing. Maybe it has a better way of saying something, or I'm trying to rephrase something. So I can put the sentence or the paragraph into ChatGPT and say, what do you think? Does this make sense? Could you rephrase it in a better way? And then I can see what ChatGPT produces. And because I'm a proficient writer, I can then, oh, I really like that word that ChatGPT has used. I might use that. Or no, I don't like that. Now we want our students to be able to use ChatGPT to support their writing, not to do it for them. So maybe going through the traditional, we're going to do some mind mapping, we're going to do some draft writing, you're going to try and write it by yourself, but then you can type that up and helping students with prompts in ChatGPT to get feedback on their writing from AI. Um, does my introduction have a thesis statement? Recently, my students submitted their first piece of work, and many students didn't really get the concept of thesis statement, so they submitted an essay without a thesis statement. Putting it into ChatGPT and go, you know, do I have a thesis statement? Do you understand my thesis statement? Have I gone off topic anywhere? Can you notice any grammar mistakes or any spelling mistakes? Um, that being at the final level, and then maybe having students hand in a draft that they have created from the beginning, and then a draft that they have created with ChatGPT. So there are two drafts, and the teacher can then look at, okay, this is a draft you made by yourself, and this is what you've done with ChatGPT, and then grade them accordingly based on the knowledge that students have had support with ChatGPT. And by doing that, I think we are equipping them for the necessary skills that they'll need once they graduate. Because once they get into the workplace, as I said, if they can speed up their whatever job they're doing, if they can speed it up using AI, it's going to be invaluable for them. You know, whether it's like inputting stuff in an Excel sheet and they can prompt AI to do that for them or to get data from an Excel sheet pretty quickly. So, the four strategies that emerged from the data. Back to basics, go back to pen and paper. Track students' writing. Use personalization tasks, although that may not still work. You've already seen my example of how well ChatGPT knows me. It knows my name, my job, it knows my career, so it can easily create an essay about me. Or having students use AI to support their writing, teaching them how to use it to produce better pieces of work, but then at the assessment stage, knowing that they have had that support and having them submit maybe a draft where they have created the draft and then a second draft which has gone through AI support. I mentioned that there was about 12% of respondents who indicated that they hadn't changed the way that they were teaching. Um, a lot of these teachers articulated a sense of frustration, and I think maybe it's easy to feel frustrated. Um, I know when I first experienced ChatGPT and I was first told about it, a friend of mine said, "Well, we're all going to be out of a job because ChatGPT can write essays." And when I saw the power of ChatGPT, I felt a sense of frustration, like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" Some teachers believe that AI is just a fad and it's gonna it's gonna go out of fashion and people will stop using it. I disagree with this idea that it was, although it was in the data, I really think AI is now going to be an integral part of our lives. It already is. I mean, I can't do a Google search now without it being AI generated. So when I used to do the old-fashioned research, because I'm old, was in the library looking for books, but the old-fashioned notion of, keyword searching in Google is now AI generated. So I don't think it's just a fad. I think it's here to stay, and it's going to develop at a frightening pace, and we don't know where it's going to lead. Some believe world domination. Um, some teachers really did have this sense of the Luddite approach, where if you don't know the story of Ned Luddite, this was back in the UK in the Industrial Revolution, where they started to develop machines that could spin cotton and make garments much more quickly than hand. And so a lot of people lost their jobs. And Ned Luddite was the leader of the Luddites, and he went around smashing machines. So the Luddite approach means, uh, I don't want to touch AI. I don't want to go near it. I just want to forget it's happening. And I'm gonna close my eyes to it, put my head in the sand. And then there was this sentiment of, okay, AI is here, and because of that, I can't trust my students anymore or the work that they're doing. So I'm just going to keep with pen and paper. I'm going to go back to the traditional approach only. They're going to hand in work, they're going to do the writing in the classroom. I don't think that's always possible. I know in my writing classes at one university that I teach, I only have a very short time with the students. It's a reading and writing class. So half of the class has to be dedicated to reading and half has to be dedicated to writing. Innumerably, students are going to write at a different pace. So they're going to end up doing some of it at home. And I can't be looking over their shoulder all of the time. They're going to be able to get some kind of AI support. I mean, in the old days, it used to be the kids paying the smart guy in the school a little bit of money to write their essays for them. Um, it's been around for a long time. Now those kids are unemployed because ChatGPT can do it for them. So, what does this all mean for teaching writing in the age of AI? I believe from the data and my analysis and my experience as a language teacher that what we need to do is have a double approach. In a writing class, we need to have, whether you're doing 2 assignments, 3 assignments, or 4 assignments per semester, some of those assignments need to be under exam conditions. Go back to pen and paper so you can test the students and their ability to write with just a pen, paper, and their brain. Don't just throw the test at students, scaffold it, have them look at model essays, have them understand the structure, have them do plans, have them do like a mock test if you can. But then the final test, pen and paper, they've got a choice of 5 or 6 questions on cause and effect. They choose one that they like, they plan, and under exam conditions, they write an essay which becomes part of their assessment. In that way, they need to learn to write without AI. But the second approach, have an assignment where they are allowed to use AI. So maybe go through the mind mapping, go through the drafting in paper, have them type it up, but have them use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI they want to use to get feedback on their paper and to help improve it. Not to write it for them, but to get feedback and suggestions of how they can improve a final draft. And they hand in their first draft and they hand in their AI supported draft. And we assess the two tasks differently. We are much stricter, of course, with the AI supported one because we expect more from the students. And I think by doing that, we help students to run and walk at the same time. We don't want our students to run before they can walk. So having them do assignments that are going to be under exam conditions for part of their final assessment, but also having them learn how to use AI to support their writing, to improve their writing, to get better at writing, and have them be able to submit this paper, which has been AI supported, and that's going to be marked differently. And I think by doing the two approaches, we help students develop essential AI skills that they'll need in the workplace, but also learn how to write without the support of AI. Um, I've written this up for publication. Unfortunately, this is behind a paywall. It's Modern English Teacher. If your institution subscribes to Modern English Teacher, um, the paper is how AI is reshaping the way we teach writing, and it was published January this year. Um, if you do have a way of getting a Modern English Teacher, it's a great addition to your school library. It's full of practical ideas, and there are 6 issues per year. Um, I write for Modern English Teacher a lot, so I really like the journal. I've got some questions, but I think before I move to the questions, we've got about 15 minutes left. So it's probably a good time just to do Q&A. So I'll switch off my PowerPoint. And if you do have any questions, please do ask me. I haven't been following any comments in the chat. So if you've been putting stuff in there, I'm really sorry. I haven't seen anything. Okay, if you have any questions, please do ask me. Wow, silence, just like my students. Yeah, please ask. Yeah, if you've raised your hand, please ask your question, or you can type it in the chat box.
Yes, Kinsella, please, can you address the question directly?
Yes. Thank you very much,
Oh, you're welcome.
Mariana. Thank you, Andy, for a very interesting presentation. I have a very specific question. If you can, please
Right.
do answer. But you said during your presentation that it would be best to assess um, the handwritten tasks under exam conditions and the AI assisted tasks differently. Could
Yes.
you be more specific? Give an example. How would you grade them differently?
You will be more lenient of obviously under the exam condition, you would expect less, something as simple as spelling. So under exam conditions, of course, I'm going to correct spelling when I'm doing the marking and take it into consideration, but I would expect more spelling mistakes, more grammar mistakes under exam conditions. And if they've had AI support, I would expect no spelling mistakes or very few grammar mistakes, if not any. And so I think it's developing a rubric for and two different rubrics for the tasks. One where you're going to be much more lenient, knowing that the students have done this under exam conditions, under a limited period of time, um, and one where they've had that support and feedback from ChatGPT. I'm not sure what that rubric would look like. I think it's very difficult to talk about rubrics because I think they're a very personal thing depending on the teacher. Um, a rubric could be it could involve length, um, where under exam conditions you might have a a student who's of a lower proficiency who can't write as much as a student who's more advanced, and
Right.
that might score a lower mark because of that. Whereas in the AI supported one, they can probably get the length. So it depends on what your rubric would look like. In fact, ChatGPT is a great resource for teachers as well. And ChatGPT would develop a rubric. If you prompt ChatGPT and say, I want a rubric for this kind of exam, under exam condition, and a rubric for an AI supported, boom, it will give you lots of ideas as well.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Andy.
You're welcome. Oh, yeah, Mary, please go ahead. It's very polite, people raising their
Yeah.
hands.
Just recently, like, well, I have been using on our learning management system, I have them submit their original writing, and then I have them submit the feedback from either DeepL Write or DeepL Write or ChatGPT, and then I have them question the advice. So I want to make sure they learn from the feedback. And they ask really good questions about it. Like ChatGPT said this, but which is better? And so I'm really enjoying that. Yeah.
I think that's really, really essential because ChatGPT lies. Don't trust ChatGPT. It hallucinates, it lies. It's a wonderful tool, but it's like a naughty school child that hasn't done their homework and it's done the homework. Oh, well, actually, and it's like, where have you got this from? As I said with the paper I wrote with Jim, I was asking it I uploaded the Excel file of the survey data. Can you find me a relevant quotation that supports this point? Da-da-da-da. Respondent 37 said this. And I'm going through my data going, I don't remember this quotation. It's made it up. So having students blindly follow ChatGPT is really bad, but having them question it is perfect. You've got to be able to look at ChatGPT and go, well, hang on, you know, I think that's wrong.
Oh, and thank you very much for your talk. It's really nice.
Yeah. It's the same with Grammarly. Having students use Grammarly is great for checking, but sometimes Grammarly will make a mistake. Yeah, that's a good question in the chat box about a research paper. Yeah, you can't do that under the exam condition because you want students to be able to do research. So that kind of research paper, that would be the one that maybe you could do the AI supported, but then you could have a couple of exam condition papers just to check that students can write without the support of AI.
Alex has a question, please.
Yeah, Alex, please go ahead. Thanks for coming.
Um, Thank you. Yeah, I think everybody knows that I'm very interested in the issue of students who have learning differences. And we have only 1.79% of all university students tell the university they have some kind of need. That includes the kids with the wheelchairs and the white canes. That's everybody. And MEX data tells us that there are about 10% at least. And what I'm noticing is that this year there are less people identifying than in previous years. And so just recently I had to do a writing activity in one of my classes. I don't normally do writing in it. And I told the students this is coming up. I've been requested to give them a timed essay. Two of the students didn't show up. They had a 100% attendance rating. They didn't show up. The following week they came to class. I still had to give them the paper.
Yeah.
And both of them were left-handed. Both of them had really, really, really difficult to read handwriting, difficult spelling, and they were both shocked.
Yeah.
And so my point was that if you do force everybody to use the keyboard, to use paper, you might have students dropping out. You do not want people dropping out from university or failing your class because they're scared of writing. What I've done to get around that in paper-based classes is get students to scaffold using a post-it note. So they get a bunch of post-it notes and they scaffold on that. And they do that and they put their keywords down, they do their planning, because even mind mapping on paper doesn't necessarily work.
Right.
And me personally, as a dyslexic, my essays were always written online. We're talking a long time ago, and I was always just dragging and dropping the categories around.
Right.
And what you said about using Google Docs, you can look at the history. The history will show you whether somebody dumped something in there. So Microsoft Teams, inside Teams, there's it's called Class Notebook.
Yeah.
In the Class Notebook, we'll track. You can actually look at the student insights and you can see exactly how long they spent doing anything. So we know we can do it in Microsoft products. We can do it in Google products. Those are the two main forms that people are writing in. And I think it's actually on us to learn how to use those tools better and then to hit students as a group with the data showing, okay, this many students in this group spent this much time editing, but we've got some people who spent less than 1 minute editing in this last hour, and you put that up on the screen, not with any names, but that just with that, and instantly that problem disappears because they know you can see. So I don't think we really do have to throw it out altogether. And I think your ideas are good.
Yeah.
And the only other thing that I do is I actually make my students do a voice recording of what they've written.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
And that's in Microsoft Speaking Progress. And that's built into my writing course that students do time, they do writing, they can do it online, they need to do a recording. And if they can't read their own work, pretty obvious they haven't written it. So I don't think we really do have to go back. I've chucked a copy of the BrainSig's bias issue, and I would like people to read that and think about bias in terms of how they would react for grading if the handwriting is not neat.
Yeah.
As a person who has been affected by that myself for my whole life. Anyway, I will get off my soapbox, but thank you. It's been very interesting.
Just to address that, I wonder if there's a way for a select, you wouldn't want to do it with all of the students because it would be difficult to manage, but a select few students could bring in a computer.
No, can't do it.
They go offline, they switch off their Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Because if it's like one or two, you can keep an eye on it.
No, you can't do that because you're actually that's why I wrote in the thing at the top that if you say everybody must handwrite except that kid in the corner, that kid has then, because that's a reasonable accommodation is a privacy law between you and the student, and you cannot out them. So the student has the only option the student has is the risk that you will read their writing and not rip them apart for spelling and letter formation, or they just drop out.
Right.
That's what will happen, and we don't really want them dropping out. But you have other ways of, that system of using the amount of time they spend editing is a very good, clear indicator of copy paste.
Great. Thank you so much. So you could do the kind of under exam condition using something like Google Doc where you track and then you see how much time they've been on. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Andy, one more question.
Yeah.
Daniel has one, please. Can you
I hope it's not a difficult
unmute yourself?
Explain the theoretical framework. No, I'm just kidding. No, I quite enjoyed that and found it very similar to what I'm thinking and my approach. As you mentioned, right? If we don't teach them how to use AI, then they're just going to use it in a way that is not ethical and not appropriate. But if we show them how it can be used ethically and properly, then they at least have a chance, right? And that could, like you said, that could help them down the road when they go out into the workforce and they're asked to do it. And I do some similar things to you. I will sometimes like have them write the introduction to the essay in class by hand, no electronics on, and then they have to take a photo of that and upload it.
Yeah.
And then they take that paper copy, they go home and they type that in, and then they have to build on that. But at least I have some idea of like what they can do without that. But another thought I had on that is that, and I try to emphasize to them, so hopefully that, some who are willing to learn or understand will understand. And that is, if you use generative AI to do the work for you and you just come up with a prompt, you're not learning.
No.
And that is, I'm hoping that they'll understand that you are here to learn. This is your opportunity. This is like the main part of your life where you should be learning.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll try. So for that reason, I will try to help you learn how to use AI. But if you can't do any writing without that help, then you're not learning, and the one that will serve you poorly in the future.
That's right. It's like learning to drive in an automatic car, and then suddenly you rent a gear stick, and you're like, oh, I can't do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Okay, we are at time, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much. I will pass to Heather, who's
Thank
going to
you.
say
Thanks so
final.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're so pleased that you came today. And also, would you do us a favor in the chat room? Could you fill out the form for us? Yeah, so I sent the link. I'll send it again. And that way we can send your feedback and comments to Andy. He would really, I'm sure he'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming today. And yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you, everybody, for your time on a Saturday evening. Thank you so much.
That was so great. I really learned so much. Thank you.